Welcome to the Sideline. I'm Andy Katz. Well, this is going to be a home for a lot of original content in college sports and beyond. Now, of course, you're going to get a lot of that similar content that I produce for NCAA platforms, Big Ten Network, and other places. But I needed a home for a lot of those interviews with the newsmakers in this space. So where are you going to find it? Right here at the Sideline. Let's get to it. And welcome everyone to an off-season chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Kelvin Sampson of the University of Houston. And Kelvin, right off the bat, no talk of retirement, new 4-year deal. What are your thoughts on extending this stay and going for another national championship?
Um, I do get asked a lot. It does come up. But when I got hired at Washington State as the head coach, I was 31, and I got kind of hit a lot. Well, he's too young. He's 31, then I turned 32. He's too young, and I said, well, maybe the goal should be one day to be the oldest coach. Well, I went from being the youngest coach to the oldest coach. I didn't think I would get there, but I am. But this is the best job I've had, Andy, because I get to do it with my family. I get to do it with kids that I recruited and coached, and it's been fulfilling for me to watch their growth and the impact they've had on this program. Because our success, our overall success, is tied to our staff so much. So being able to stay around a few more years and be around them, I don't take it for granted.
So I have not been doing this as long as you, but I've been doing it 30 plus years. And I'll say that that Monday night was one of the hardest sort of post games that I've dealt with. I felt awful for you and your team and Emanuel and everyone. So close to winning that national championship. You guys were right there. It would have been your 800th. Now there's been time. Time heals. When you think back to the last couple minutes and all that, I mean, what have you processed in the last 6 weeks or so?
Um, well, first of all, I know how hard it is to make the tournament. And I've noticed the more you make the tournament, the more people appreciation for what you do goes down. They know you no longer get credit for making the tournament. And then once you make the tournament, I know how hard it is to advance. Now we've been a one seed a few times, and this year playing Gonzaga, for instance, in the second round. Going into that game, I was scared to death. I said, this team absolutely can beat us. And so I thought our team, we played the way we play. When we play the way we play, we think we're pretty good, this past team. And then to go to Indianapolis and have to play Purdue kind of in a pseudo home game. I think two things. Number one, it speaks to how great Purdue's program is, that their fans showed up in those numbers and absolutely impacted the game. But to be able to win that game and win it the way we did was very gratifying. And then you get to Tennessee. Rick Barnes has been one of my closest friends for a long time. And then you win the game the way we won it. And then after the game, whoever wins goes to the Final Four, but you don't think about that because you can lose the game. So you can't get ahead of yourself. But there's such an appreciation for making the Final Four because I know how hard it is. And then we get there and we play one of the best college players probably in the last 20, 25 years in Cooper Flag. He's everything that he's made out to be. He's special. But to win that game the way we won it, the Purdue game, the Gonzaga game, the Purdue game, and the Tennessee game, and now here comes the Duke game, and now we're playing in Florida. Um, there's two things that will impact games that when the game is over, it's hard to look back and um, wrap your mind around. One, the thing that can impact it is injuries. We had no injuries. Last year, that really impacted us. This year, it didn't. We were lucky this year with injuries. I think the thing that, from our standpoint, that was most disappointing for me was foul trouble. JoJo Tugler played less than 16 minutes. Javier Francis played less than 17 minutes. So the foul trouble really impacted it. But Florida's front line is real. Their depth and the quality of their depth. They have four starters. I felt good about three of our starters. I thought we went toe to toe with their front line with JoJo, J1, and Javier. We not a lot of difference in their front line and our front line, but the foul trouble really impacted us down the stretch. Um, um, the possessions and when they happen was disappointing. Um, but it's a game that you had a chance to win. I don't like to say we should have won. That's not fair to Florida. Uh, but it's a game we could have won. Um, and I thought our kids played their hearts out. But so did Florida kids. We did a great job on Will Clayton Jr. The Richards kid hurt us the first half. And then the second half, we had a hard time scoring. And then we had too many wasted possessions down the stretch. And, as a coach, you have to take responsibility for that.
One of the hardest things I think coaches deal with is sort of lifting people up after something disappointing, and making sure that they don't let that define them. How did you
Right.
handle that with Emmanuel, to make sure that he had a great year, great tournament, and it just you don't want that last couple possessions to define him. How did you handle that with him?
Well, we beat Arizona in the championship game, Big 12 tournament. And Emmanuel was voted the most outstanding player of the tournament. He got this big old WWE belt thing. I saw it the other day. It's around there somewhere in the office. And then in the regionals against Purdue and Tennessee, he was the most outstanding player. Um, Unfortunately, people remember what you did last, which means you get no credit for anything you've done. Um, um, and I told Emmanuel two things. Number one, that I love him, and he knows that's unconditional. I think that's the relationship that you have with your team. We've always been proud of our culture, but culture is no good without standards. You know, Standards is what drives the unpleasantries of it. That's what makes it hard. Culture can be a fraternity, it can be kumbaya culture, but those standards and nobody practiced harder or established our standards on this team as much as LJ Crier is right there with him, but Emanuel Sharp. But um, that moment for Emmanuel, um, I think you have to give Walter Clayton Jr. a lot of credit. I think we had it was a misdirection action, and if I had to do it over again, I'd run the same play because he bid on it, and then Emmanuel took off, and we had the screen set. But Walter Clayton Jr. is a little bit like Deion Sanders. The ground he covered on the flight of the ball, and then when Emmanuel turned to shoot it, he should have been open. But let's give some credit to Walter Clayton Jr. He went from out of the play to making a play that helped his team win the game, which is why he's an All-American and one of the two or three best players in college. But um, Emmanuel, I told him how much I love him, told him how much our teammates respect and and love him, and that's so much more important than winning a game or making the play. People that don't know you, um, they're going to form their opinion one way or the other. But respect in our locker room in this program for Emmanuel could not be greater.
Kelvin, historically, when I think about sort of the programs that have come the furthest, rebuilding jobs or just building. To me, there's four, and you can decide which order they go in. What Calhoun did at UConn, what Lute Olson did at Arizona, what Mark Few's done at Gonzaga, and now what you've done at Houston. Now, Houston obviously had great history, Guy Lewis and Phi Slamma Jamma, but then there was a gap. It was Grand Canyon size that you have brought back to being a title contender now yearly. When you think about top five sort of rebuilds or builds, where do you put what you've done at Houston?
Well, I would add Scott Drew and Baylor to that too, somewhere. I don't know where you would rate any of us. I would probably tend to go with Arizona and Gonzaga because I lived in the West, played against both, coached against Lute in the Pac-10 in those days. It wasn't a Pac-12. Um, and they were Arizona was the program everybody aspired to be. Luke was the silver fox. He lorded over um, the greatest program in the West. UCLA at the time was UCLA, but they weren't Arizona. And then Mark we're a little bit like Mark in that sometimes your consistency, um, people get bored or tired or fatigued of doing it year after year after year. I think we've been to six straight Sweet 16s, and Mark had been to nine. And just the respect you have for the consistency of Gonzaga. Uh, to me, Gonzaga represents everything that's good about college basketball. Great coaching, um, outstanding players that believe and love their school, a fan base that's passionate about their school. Um, and then Arizona with Coach, I remember I coached against Steve Kerr, for God's sake. you know, I remember I coached against Sean Elliott when he was a freshman with Anthony Cook and Tom Tolbert and McMillan, Kerr. I think that team went to the Final Four in '88, if I'm not mistaken. Um, not as familiar with where Connecticut was, because when I think of Connecticut, you just think of an elite blue blood school that has set the standard for everybody. But it's just like here at Houston, Guy B. Lewis showed you can do it. And he had legendary players and Dream and Clyde in that bunch. Elvin Hayes, to me, is still the greatest Cougar of them all. But those guys played in an era where I think the biggest difference in the era those guys played in and now is Luke would have only had Sean Elliott 1 year. There would have never been a second year for Elvin or Dream. Those guys do it. Today, you're having to almost start over some programs every year. I think the thing that's helped us the most is we've been able to retain our kids. Very rarely does our kids transfer. We had one transfer last year, Damian Dotson, and one transferred this year, Terrence Arsenault, and the reason that was because of playing time. They just didn't. They weren't, and Damian wasn't going to start the next year, and Terrence probably would not have started the next year either. But having Milos back, having Emmanuel back, having JoJo Tugler back, um, and then all of our young guys off the bench, Mercy Miller, Chase McCarty, Ramon Walker, and Cordell Jefferson, Ced Lott, Jacob McFarland, all those guys came back. and people were calling them, offering them this or that. You can start here, do this, do that. But I think the culture and the standards that we've set here um, has made us what we are.
One last thing before we go to this going up next season. The stat from last season that to me is just absolutely remarkable. And while yes, Baylor won a national championship, they've been able to match Kansas at times. You came into this league and you've been in it before, another version of it years ago at Oklahoma. Um, and really we're right there winning it. Did not lose a road game. I mean, that's remarkable in how great the arenas are in the Big 12, the
Yeah.
fan bases and everything. That to me is a stat from this past season that sometimes gets lost that I
Yes.
do think needs to be highlighted because it's so remarkable. What was it about this group and what you've done recently to be able to come into this league where Kansas and to some extent Baylor have been the big boys and you come in, bam, and you're winning it with distance and not losing on the road.
You're right. That's impossible. That's impossible. But I could describe that impossible was the road game at Kansas. How do you win that one? But um, I think the cynic, the negativity that's driven so much of sports response today um, is so focused on what somebody did not do, and they don't give credit to the team that did do. Like our kids never quit. Did we have breaks? Absolutely. Um, um, Kansas makes a free throw, we don't win. They get the ball in bounds, we probably don't win. Uh, but our kids played their guts out. They just played their hearts out. And I think that starts in June with the standards that we hold these kids to. Culture is no good without standards. Standards is what drives. It's what drives Houston basketball. Is the accountability that we have to the standards that we set. Um, and uh, for instance, after the Kansas game, the pandemonium of the locker room, I think when we got in the locker room, it was like, how did we win that? Oh, did we win that? It's one of those moments. Um, but as soon as that happened, J1 Roberts started talking about 6:30 a.m. on Monday, June 3rd, where we had to run 18 100-yard sprints and all in 14 seconds or under, and everybody made it. The mile run, where we set a program record at the end of September, where everybody made their mile time. Um, the very first day we ran it, we all made it. So we've earned this moment. We put in the work. We we've done what we needed to do, and that's why I love it when they talk and I don't. I love it when they say those things and I don't have to. That's why the best teams are player-led teams, and teams that underachieve usually have no player leadership. We win because we have an awesome staff that holds these kids accountable daily, and we have great player leadership. This team was led by LJ Cryer, J1 Roberts, but Emanuel Sharp was right there too. And then Milos, he had to learn how to be a Cougar basketball player, which means he had to get out of his comfort zone. But we got him once we got him out of his comfort zone. He found out how good he could be.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, one of the best things that was changed legislatively was access in the summer. Restricting that in the past just made no sense because why wouldn't you want your players to get better? And there's no question, I'm a huge believer, I know you are, that the way in which you guys won that Duke game, in the pressure, the stamina, the endurance down the stretch, making plays, Juwan Roberts settling everyone down, making those two free throws, all that stuff, go all the way back to June and July.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
repetition,
Yeah.
the consistency, being in that moment, being in stressful situations. May not be a game, Maybe it's a stressful situation on a mile run. You name it, running up a hill, whatever it is. I'm a big believer in that. The way that Duke game was won, you can trace it all the way back to what you guys do beginning in June. What do you have to say to that?
Yes, yes. And a lot of these rules are archaic. They probably were a good idea at the time they made them, but in the era where we're paying these kids million plus dollars, a lot of them, um, we're still allowing ourselves only 8 hours a week that we can work with our players, and that includes the weight room. So we're having to balance weight room hours, conditioning hours, and actual time on the court hours. 2025. Why can't we go 10 hours? There's a reason why these kids are going to these schools. They want to be pros. Well, give us a chance. But you're exactly right, Andy. Um, you could tell Florida had a great culture. Duke has a great culture. Kansas, there's so many great cultures. Texas Tech in our league has a great culture. Um, Kevin Young, what he's building at BYU is going to be special. But the belief and the integrity and character and maturity of your players to tie that together. Now, when they're going through it, it's hard. It's hard. You got Alan Bishop, our strength coach, running up one nostril, and you got Coach Sampson and Quantas running down the other leg, and it's like, can these dudes give me a break? Are we doing anything? But those are the moments that we prepare when nobody's watching, prepares us for the moments when everybody watches. So it's just a standard you've got to get yourself to. LJ Cryer, I don't remember him having a bad practice last year. He's the same guy every year. You consistency beats brilliance when brilliance isn't consistent. Our greatest strength, I think, is our consistency of effort, and it's because of the standards that I've set for this team every day in practice and their ability to get from point A to point B and then point C. Well, point C is as high as I can go. Oh no, oh no. There's another level to that. And once they figure that out, that's the only time. Bill Russell used to say, until you play as hard as you possibly can play, you'll never figure out how good you can be. And I really believe that.
All right, we talked about the guys returning. You guys are going to be right there. Again, we know that favorite in the Big 12, top five team. It's hard to crack your lineup as a newcomer, whether you're a portal guy or a freshman. But of at least right now, I count five, if my numbers are right, of newcomers, including portal and freshmen. What are you looking at? What do you fill a void? Where can these guys help?
Well, um, we have four freshmen. Um, there's a thought about redshirting Bryce. We'll see how he does. We're not going to waste a kid's year, especially in this NIL era. A lot of these kids should want to stay 5 years. There's a motivation to stay. You're incentivized if you stay longer. So redshirting is acceptable these days versus yesteryear. Um, I think this will be the best bench we've had. Um, my philosophy on our teams have always been 5-2-2. Five guys that start, two guys that can start, and then two guys that their minutes are going to fluctuate based on how the other guys are doing in the game. So I think our five starters going into last year, I kind of knew who was starting. This is the first year I'm not sure. Um, I know Milos and Emmanuel and JoJo will, obviously, but there's an opportunity for CNAC at the four.
That's
Chase
Chris
McCoy,
Senac, the
yeah,
big
Chris
man
CNAC,
freshman.
Chris CNAC Jr., a
Yep.
kid from New Orleans that played at Link Academy. Um, um, I think he's got a chance to be really good, but not today. He's got a lot of work to do to get there. Khalifa, SoCal, the kid from Sam Houston. He's about 6'11", veteran. He's one of those guys that no matter where he goes, he's probably going to average about 6 points and 6 rebounds. And whether if he's at University of North Dakota or University of North Carolina, he's going to average 6 points, 6 rebounds. Um, um, and that just sounds like a excellent backup five to me. And then in the backcourt, LJ was a bucket getter, but LJ evolved and developed into a really good defender. You've got Mercy Miller, Kingston Flemings, Isaiah Harwell, um, Cordell Jefferson, Ramon Walker, Chase some. Um, but this is the first year that it is an open competition, and the coach will not choose who starts. They will. They will. It could easily be Kingston. It could easily be Isaiah. Easily could be Mercy. Go compete, man. Let's put it out there on the court and may the best man win. But I know those freshmen and Mercy, Cordell, all those guys need an opportunity because I think Kingston can be special. I think Isaiah. Um, Isaiah is a little bit of an X factor for us because he gives us a big wing. Emmanuel was our big wing last year, and Mercy with the opportunity and Mercy improving on the little things and things that we value in the program. He's got to adapt to that. So we got a chance. I say this every year, Andy. We got a chance to be good. How good? We'll see how they unconditionally accept the standards of this program. But we have good players and we've got really good veterans coming back, and we should have a good year.
All right, rapid fire to close it out. Last year you played a great schedule. You're in Players Era again. What else do you have non-conference?
Well, we don't. We've got agreements. We don't have the contracts executed, so I can't say. But we're going to play six high level games, and the possibility of a seventh. You know, the only thing I'm having a hard time doing is finding a team that will a marquee game at home. A lot of these teams want to play us, but they want it to be on a neutral court. Um, and if that's what we got to do, we'll do. But I want to do right by our fans. Our fans deserve a marquee home game because we have a great home court advantage. Of course, that's one of the reasons why it's hard to get one.
Well, you got
Um,
offered in the city last year, right?
yeah. So we go back to Birmingham.
Right.
So we got
It wasn't on campus, it was just in the city.
right. There's a strong possibility that we play Syracuse and Tennessee, or they gave us a pot of teams. We're going to play two of. We're going to play two of three or two of four. I don't remember the others. I remember Syracuse and Tennessee were in that group, and then the third game for all of us will come down to a point system where they'll determine who you play third. But your first two games will be scheduled for you. The
You're
third
talking
game
about
is
Players Era. Yeah.
right.
All right.
And then,
Last
but we are going to play a game at the Toyota Center against another marquee opponent, and then we have another marquee opponent in the Northeast.
Okay. Last couple things. Quarters or halves. It's not going to change this year, but it could in 2
Quarters.
years. Quarters. Why?
You get to have 5 fouls each quarter, and it starts off at one every quarter. I think it makes the game flow better. Um, and I think it can be faster. The thing I do not like is this challenge rule. I don't like
Why?
the challenge
That's going in. Why?
because it takes the referees being able to go to the clock in the last 2 minutes to get the call right. The goal in basketball is not should be to speed the game up. So what if we go 5 minutes over? If they got to go to the monitor, in that Purdue game, there was a call that last play before we ran the out of bounds play, they went to the monitor and they had to go to the monitor to make sure we got it right. Well, if I don't have a challenge, we probably lose the game. I like the referees being able to go to the monitor in the last two games, and if we adopt that challenge rule, we take that ability away.
Last two things. You've coached the NBA, advancing the ball. Where do you stand?
Absolutely. Why are we not doing that? What is the reason why? For God's sake, Andy, we put a 45-second shot clock in, and you would have thought the game was going to shut down forever. And then we went 35, then we went 30. FIBA, if it were me, if I was the czar of college basketball, I would adopt every single FIBA rule. FIBA has it right.
Last thing, expansion. Keep it at 68, go to 72 or 76.
I just got back from Big 12 meetings and listening to Commissioner Yormark. He was telling us the reasons why. I'm a traditionalist, so I'd like to keep it at 68, but I also like the idea of giving more teams an opportunity to play. West Virginia should have made it. I think North Carolina should have made it too. I wasn't against that. West Virginia stumbled a little bit coming in. So they both had an argument for and against. But why do we have to argue? Put them both in. So I think for coaches, it helps them. And for players, it gives them an opportunity and that for a memory to last a lifetime.
Awesome, Kelvin. Always a pleasure catching up.
Same here. Andy, you look good too, man.
Trying. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.